You want to fight? You want to fight, tough guy? You want to fight me? Want to fight? Let's fight! See that battery on my shoulder? I dare you to knock it off, you little SOB. You knocked that Oh, you did. You knocked it off. Oh, well then, I dare you to knock that cute little orangutan off my shoulder. Oh, you did. How about a size 15 Converse All-Star? You want to fight? You want to deal with the Ultimate Warrior? Oh, yeah. I am the Ultimate Warrior. Fight me. Fight me if you dare. Knock it off. I know, Franks. I'm hyper. I want to fight somebody. Buddy fight, that is. Come on, groove, baby. Listen to that playing. A master. I better turn it down, though, because I want to talk to you. Turn it down. Can't have that stuff loud, you know. Hey, folks, I'm sorry for the silly intro. I'm just hyper. I love making videos. I love talking to you all. I love wearing my John Lennon jacket from Rubber Soul. A little lighter in color, but this is just like the one stitch for stitch. Just like John's on Rubber Soul. Feast your eyes on it. I'm sorry, folks. Having a little fun, a little hyper. I want to talk to you. Doing something different. I know it won't get a lot of views, but folks, this is a rare one. This is an obscure one for you. Now, you all know I've talked about my dad before, and he's been in some videos, and you're going to get to see him for a couple of minutes here in this video. Yes, I talked to my dad about this artist for a couple of minutes. I taped it, and I'm going to insert it into this video. So you'll get to see my dad again after several years, because he's 93 now, and he can't come down to the music room anymore. He's on oxygen, and, you know, he has his health issues, but boy, he's still, you know, he's still sharp, my dad, and he loves talking about music. So stick around for that. I'm going to have a little clip with Dad here. For all you fans of Dad Street, you'll be able to see him. But folks, you know I love my dad, and I love the fact that him and my mom turned me on to so much great music when I was a kid, including the Beatles, #1. But I also got into a lot of other things in my dad's music collection. The Ray Conniff, the stuff in the late 60s he was into, like Chicago and Sly and the Family Stone, and then later on Chuck Mangione and Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass. I could go on and on. My dad had all kinds of genres and music. You know, Burt Kaempfert and all that stuff. He had John Denver's greatest hits. He had so much stuff, my dad. But one artist he had 3 albums by this guy. And the guy only ever put out like 6 total studio albums between 1969 and 1982. My dad had 3 of them. They were in his collection, and I always gazed at all my dad and mom's record collection. So I studied the covers, and I read them, and I looked at the images and the pictures, and I got to know these albums so well. Now, the artist I'm talking about is Buddy Fite. That's why I said, do you want to fight? Buddy Fite, F-I-T-E. Now, that's the obscure artist. How many of you out there, if you're a jazz, pop, or instrumental guitar fan, if you like jazz, pop, and instrumental guitarist, you should know a Buddy Fite. And I'm sure some of you out there do. Buddy Fite was born on June 19th, 1938 in Oregon. He loved the Pacific Northwest. He just ate it up and loved that part of the country. And as a matter of fact, he died in Amboy, Washington. Boy, what a sad time, but it was on September 4th, 2001. Buddy was only 63 years old, I believe. Died from throat cancer and lung cancer. I guess he was a big puffer. You know, that happens. He died so young, 63. I'm 62. He was only a year older than me. Buddy put out these great albums. My dad had 3 of them, so I want to show you the 3 albums my dad had, talk about it a little bit. I was playing a little Buddy earlier. and see what you think, okay? So stick around. Let me show you the 3 albums, talk about Buddy a little bit, and then I'll be out of here, and then I'll have a little clip of Dad for a couple of minutes at the end talking about Buddy Fite and these albums that he loved so much. Now, Buddy's first album, and I can remember this album sitting around the house so much, called Buddy Fite, with an exclamation point after his name. And my dad's is long gone, but I bought this promotional copy recently to have the same exact album, and I love having it. I love having it. It brings back so many memories of staring at my dad's copy of this album. Great album. Buddy just did a lot of great pop songs. He basically was a jazz pop guitarist, but he would do a lot of the modern songs from the era. So I'll give you a little gander at that here. Let me see how that's translating, but if you can see it. But he did some Beatle cuts. He does something and stuff like that, and Fly Me to the Moon. He just a great pop jazz guitarist, but so talented. Buddy was a monster of a man, 6'6" in height, big guy. Like I said, grew up in the Pacific Northwest. He was involved in the music scene up there. What a prodigy on the guitar. He met Willie Nelson and actually played on Willie Nelson's first recording in 1957. Willie just thought this guy was so talented. He played in that style of Les Paul and Chet Atkins and all that, but Buddy was right up there in talent. Just such a great artist. But he hated flying. That was the one downfall for Buddy Fite. Hated to fly, so he rarely left the Pacific Northwest. He was going to be on, or he was on briefly on a Johnny Mathis national tour, playing as Johnny's guitarist, but he gave it up because he hated flying. He just couldn't get over that fear of flying, and he tucked himself away and isolated himself in the Pacific Northwest, and he just wouldn't come out much. That's the way it was. And even in the 1960s, before he got his record contract, he was briefly in the Hells Angels. 6'6", big lumbering guy. Yeah, he was a Harley Davidson lover. Rode them till the day he died, and he was briefly in the Hells Angels, if you can believe it. And he worked at a lumber mill and whatnot. He did all that stuff in the 60s. But he was so talented that in 1969, Cyclone Records president Robert Mercy heard some tapes of Buddy Fite and signed him immediately. It was a Columbia subsidiary on the Cyclone label. And this was the first album, Buddy Fite, 1969. And the one my dad had and loved and cherished it. Okay, now a year later in 1970, he put out the album called Changes on Cyclone. Here it is right here. God, I look at this and it brings back memories of being that young boy in the early 70s. My dad had this, and it's Bell also, Cyclone Bell. He was later, Bell was added to Buddy's contract. But I'll give you an idea of some of the songs. Hopefully you can see them okay. All right. Jazz pop. Just great guitarist, Buddy Fite. So that was the second one my dad had. And my dad had his third album from 1971 on the Bell label called Buddy Fite and Friend. Great cover with the guitar and the flora there. I love that. And show you the back here. Got to remove some paperwork that's here. But there you go. Buddy Fite and Friend. Again, don't know how that will translate. But it gives you an idea what he was playing. Pop standards of the time. Modern music with a jazzy pop flair. Great stuff. Now, he released 3 more albums after these first 3 here. These are the 3 my dad had. I mean, I know these by heart, love them. So happy to have them and listen to them. But he also released a 4th album called Buddy Fite Plays for Satin Dolls in 1975, 4 years after the Buddy Fite and Friend album. Then 2 years later, in 1977, Buddy released Hits of Yesterday. And then 5 years later, he released his final studio album called Tasty in 1982. During the 90s, Buddy's health declined. He fought back larynx cancer and throat cancer, was treated for it, recovered from it, but then the cancer came back. And as I said, September of 2001, he died at the age of 63 in the beloved Pacific Northwest, where he loved and lived and loved spending time with his son, riding his Harley, and enjoying life up to the end. I don't know the whole story why he didn't record much after 1982, but just a great story, and a great artist and musician. And he's one of those obscure, forgotten artists that not a lot of people talk about, certainly here in the vinyl community or music community. So I'm just curious, how many of you jazz aficionados out there, or jazz pop instrumental guitar people out there, how many of you have heard of Buddy Fite? What do you think of him? I mean, he's just been always a staple in my life because of my dad way back in the early 70s, late 60s. And I love these 3 albums I have of Buddy. They're fantastic. You heard a little clip in the beginning there. What a talent. And I just thought you'd enjoy hearing about an artist that you probably normally would never hear about. So sit back and relax, because now you get to see a couple of minutes of Dad talking about Buddy Fite. Thanks for being here, folks, and give me your comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this video. Bye-bye. I wanted to ask you a couple of questions. First of all, how's your breakfast and your coffee and everything? Good?
It's always good.
You enjoying it?
Excellent.
Nice muffin, eggs, and coffee.
Yeah.
All right, now I want to show you a couple of things and see what you think. All right? These were your albums. Do you remember this guy at all? And do you remember having these albums, Buddy Fite?
Yes. He was a guitar player.
Yeah, and here's another one of yours. You remember that one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought he was very good.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about it. He was from the Pacific Northwest. I think it was, I want to say Oregon. And he had a fear of flying. And so promoters used to get Buddy to come out and do shows and come to LA and stuff. But he wouldn't, because he was scared of getting on a plane. So he stayed in the Pacific Northwest, and he would play up there at clubs and venues until the end of his life. He lived, I think, until his early 70s or so. He might have passed away about 20 years ago. But he's a really talented guitarist.
Oh, yeah.
And you had these albums, and I think you had one more of his album. He only put out like 3 or 4 albums. But I found these 2 of yours, and I thought I'd get your opinion about if you remember him.
I thought he was a great guitar player.
Yeah.
I always liked the guitar.
He's like a jazz pop guitar player.
Yeah.
Little jazz, a little pop, but he does some great covers. He does some Beatles songs on here and some other things. And
I think the guitar, I always thought that was the great instrument. And
yeah,
people like Buddy Fite, I forgot about him. But
yeah, well, for some reason, something you probably don't remember now, why you would have bought, but you bought 3 of his albums, and I was just curious, do you have any recollection why you would have bought them? Or
because I heard him on the radio.
Yeah.
And I just thought he was so talented.
Yeah. So I have your albums, and I've been listening to them lately, and I'm finding he's a really good artist. He's a talented guitar player, and
I never realized he was limited in where he worked. I just thought he was famous and would travel.
Well, he was well known, and he's kind of like, there are a group of people that do appreciate his music now, but like I said, he was pretty much held to the Northwest United States because he didn't like to fly. It was kind of a big thing for him. He wouldn't come out, and he wouldn't go tour around the country and stuff. He was set
with interest in him didn't grow because they never had a chance to see
No,
him.
he didn't come around touring too much around the whole country or world. He kind of stayed in his little cocoon up there in the Northwest United States.
Yeah.
But he still has a reputation of being a hell of a guitar player, and a lot of people like his music. But anyway, I thought I'd run that by you and see how you were doing today. I was going to put this out to the people to see you and see how you're doing.
Oh, I'm doing okay. And that brings back a good, excellent memories of
Yeah.
another talent.
Yeah. Yeah, he's no longer with us, but he put out a couple of really good albums, you know.
He probably wouldn't be known to many younger people.
No, not many people talk about him, so
Yeah.
hopefully we get the word out a little bit.
Yeah.
All right, thanks. I appreciate it.
I
Take care.
appreciate you bringing it to my attention because
Yeah.
when you mentioned his name, I immediately remembered.
Yeah, oh
I
yeah.
thought he was really good.
Yeah. Thanks.
Great guitar player.
All right. Thanks, Dad. Appreciate it.